There is a new earn operation for World of Tanks console, along with a whole host of buffs that we mentioned in a previous video, and we're going to have a look at what Wargaming have actually done to each of those tanks. And then in the upcoming week, over the next couple of days, we're going to be testing out each and every single one of these vehicles and doing a little review for you guys that will hopefully be interesting. And of course, let's get into it. So the first thing on the list is, of course, the new contract or earn operation to be able to pick up the German Tier 8 VK7501K. So this is the heavy tank. It's somewhat similar to that of the Tier 9 Tech Tree German heavy tank, which is the VKB. Now the VKK is essentially somewhat like a VKB in its hull armour. It has a slight difference in its turret armour in that it has this rounded kind of mouse looking turret where essentially it's quite easy to pen if you've got super high penetration, but up against its own tier it's actually kind of good. And that makes the tank very usable. I really enjoyed playing this. I thought it would be rubbish because I thought, you know what, it's a heavy tank that relies on its armour. It's probably going to get penned by everything. But in actuality, this thing is actually pretty good. And of course, if you have already got the vehicle, you also then get 3.2 million silver in return if you do already have it and you get it again. Now, this is really good. Obviously, you just have to complete the stages, and to complete the stages, we'll give a little rundown. And it's essentially an XP requirement to complete all of the stages. And they're super easy to complete. It's just a case of playing the game. And there are some additional ones which are essentially that you have to destroy some vehicles, you might have to get some block damage, etc. on top of getting the XP, but usually it's the actual XP that is the kind of limiting thing in getting the next vehicle. But of course, there are 8 stages with this. You can pay for them, but then again, you may as well just probably pay for the tank itself. But, you know, if you're going to try and complete it, I would recommend just going through. And of course, it gets harder and harder as you go through the stages. The first one getting at 2,400 XP, then you get on to 3,600, and then on to 7,200. Then you add in a few extra conditions, and then you just basically double the XP every single time until you get to the final package, which you need to get 298,000. So some quick maths, we've got 450,000, we've got about 500,000, 530,000, 550,000, and then yeah, you're looking at about 570,000 XP to be able to get this tank from the beginning. Of course, I believe during these, when you do use times 3 XP boosters, they count towards it, but I wouldn't recommend using them unless you want the actual XP. But yeah, it's essentially 500,000. Of course, you do have to complete some of the harder stages, which are probably going to be destroying 95 vehicles and then getting that 120,000 XP, since the 95 vehicles are usually the bit that you can get stuck on out of all of the conditions. The rest of them are pretty easy. You have things like blocking damage, which is kind of decent. But overall, this tank very good. It has 490 alpha, good penetration on its premium rounds, kind of lackluster on the standard rounds, but still more than enough for most tanks at the tier. You just have to fire some premium when you come up against those higher tier vehicles. Top forward speed 30 kilometers an hour is actually pretty good for a fairly slow style tank, and the armor model as effective as it is. And yeah, really did enjoy this tank. The one thing that lets it down is, of course, its damage per minute, but it's not terrible. It's just, bad / very average, but you make up for that with that armor model. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys will as well. But let's have a quick look at some of the Reforged tanks and what Wargaming have done to them, to see whether or not we have kind of got some of the predictions that we made with the vehicles. So the first one that we do have is the American Tier 10 medium tank. This is the premium, so it's actually the M48A2 or the T54E2, and this is essentially a medium tank that is kind of closely related to the T95E6, which is this vehicle here, except the M48 is essentially a tank that looks very much similar to the Renegade, if you know what that is, or at least the lower tier T54E2. And essentially this one relies on having good DPM and combining that with, being able to be quite flexible, but unfortunately isn't the fastest tank. And so when you do sacrifice that movement capability, you kind of have to get something. And unfortunately the tank didn't really have all too great turret armor, which meant, you get penned by basically everything. But what they've done instead is they've actually increased the armor, as I thought that they might do, which is why you're seeing the armor going up from 200 to 250, some of the armor going from 150. Unfortunately, Wargaming haven't actually provided where they've applied the armor buffs to, which is kind of annoying, and it would be nice to have a pre and a post kind of view of this. So if Wargaming are watching, that would be nice to have in the future for these articles, so you can see what the tank looked like previously, what it looks like now, and then you can do a nice little comparison between them. So, if you're a player wanting to know how to take this thing out, that you don't just jump into the game and have to work it out for yourself when you see it on the in-game viewer, because it's not particularly the most intuitive on the in-game viewer either. But moving on, we have the tier 9 SDRV-K. So this is the Swedish heavy tank, and this one has got some increased speed, which is nice. I thought it might do. It's got better accuracy, and it's also got increased penetration, which is something we thought that might happen as well. So it's gone from 249 pen up by 3, so nothing spectacular, but in line with some of the other tier 9 mediums. And then it's got some premium round buffs that are the biggest one, which is 12 extra millimeters, which is nice too. And they've also changed the standard APCR round to have increased shell velocity, so it's faster, it's going to hit the target more, and they've buffed the DPM by about 5% roughly, just less. So yeah, nice to see that there is better dispersion, so you're going to be more accurate on the move and during your turret rotation, so you'll be able to aim in easier and not have that big bloom, which is good. And I think this is going to make the tank pretty decent. I think this tank was in an okay playstyle when it was actually released, and it is in an okay place before they've buffed it, and I think this is just going to make it a little bit more of a solid vehicle that you guys are going to be able to use. As you know, when I first played it, it was lackluster. I mean, it didn't really have a whole lot of anything, but yeah, nice to see that these changes are being added, especially with regards to the top forward speed. I think that's going to be nice. It's an extra 20% from 40 to 48, so that's nice. Anyway, we then have the Panther lines. So we've got the premium Panther 88, we've got the Panther II, and then we've also got the Indian Panzer as well. So we'll start off with the Panther 88, the premium. This has basically got increased armor, so they've actually buffed it considerably. They've gone from 120mm of frontal armor all the way up to 185. They've buffed the turret rotation from 36 to 42, which is nice, so you're more kind of able to deal with some of those light tanks who are going to be pestering you. They've increased the horsepower, so the power to weight ratio gets better, so it can maintain its speed, and I feel like that's something that's quite nice with this, and I think that will make a big difference. And then we've also got the aim time going from 2.3 seconds down to 1.8, which is good, especially considering the alpha of the 8.8 being 240 off the top of my head. You'd have to double check that in game, but we can have a look here. 240 damage, so yeah, nice to see this tank getting some love. And then, of course, the same thing happening with the Panther II, so the tech tree variant, essentially increasing the rotation speed. They're giving it more health, which is nice, and they're also buffing the turret health as well, making the dispersion better as well on during movement and, of course, during rotation. And then, of course, we then have some changes to the reload speed of the top guns, so you've got better DPM by about 5%. Along with better rotation dispersion and after shot dispersion, so every single time you fire it won't bloom out as much when you're using the tank. And then they've also upgraded the order change, so every single time you want to unlock the tank and you want to unlock the next package, they've essentially swapped around some of the packages so that it makes better sense. And so the L71 gun now unlocks after turret 2, so I'm assuming that it was further on. And then the Chassis 2 now unlocks after the L71. So, nice to see that one in there. And then the Indian Panzer. So this is probably one of my favourite ones out of those lot of vehicles, or the German mediums at tier 8. And essentially what they've done with this one is just make the reload even better, the aim time way better, and the accuracy way better as well. So that is with the 9cm, they've made the aim time better by about 15%, and the accuracy better by about 10%, roughly, just shy. And then with the 8.8, they've decreased the reload. So you've got a choice between the two. Of course, my preference with this is to have the 9cm. I feel like it's a bit more consistent. You don't have to poke as many opponents. So that's my preference. And then, of course, the accuracy during movement and rotation just being buffed as well. So that's good. Then we have the CDC Black and the CDC Standard vehicle. So this is a tank that I absolutely despised when I kind of played it again. Both due to the speed at which the tank can go compared to the accuracy when moving, and they seem to have not actually changed anything to do with that, which kind of sucks, and instead that they've gone with increased reverse speed, because, you know, it's a French tank, we all know about that, so that's gone up by 25%. We've then got the 90mm gun, so that's the only gun you can use on the tank. It's got better aim time, so instead of 2.2 down to 1.8, which is good. Reload has also been buffed by about 10%, so this is good news as well, or just over 10% actually, so this is going to be super nice for the tank. The accuracy's gone down as well, so that's good, as in more accurate. And then, of course, turret rotation dispersion penalty has gone down massively as well, so going to be way better when moving your turret and staying accurate. And then the chassis, when you're moving during rotation, so as you're moving about, it's better. And terrain resistances have also gone way down. They've almost halved for the soft terrain. They've gone down by about 50% on the medium, and they've gone down by nearly half on the hard. So this is really good. And then the rotation speed also increasing. So this should feel a bit more responsive. The CDC should be feeling like it can be playable again. Hopefully the accuracy buffs have made enough to that movement dispersion. But of course, most of this is during rotation as opposed to movement. So yeah, we'll have to see how it plays in the game, and we'll do a review of it. And then going down, we then have the Legion 59 pattern and the 59 pattern. So these are the Chinese tier 8 pattern variants. And essentially what they've got is some big buffs to the armor, as I thought that they might do. They've gone from 178mm to 254, so that's a huge jump, 80mm. And of course then panel 2, they've gone from 140 to 200, so some sizable buffs all around to the armor model of this thing. And that'll be something we'll cover. I want to see exactly what they've done with regards to that armor. And then the 90mm gun, they've increased the Mantler armor from 114 all the way up to 250. So big changes there. Accuracy has got buffed by about 6 or 7%. Reload has gone down by about 10%, so that's really good as well. And the aim time has also gone down by about 10%. So super nice to see all of this happening to these tanks that definitely needed some love. And of course you could have picked them up as well for free, so this is doubly as good for you guys. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually playing these tanks again, as I found them good anyway. But then we have the Undertaker M48A2 pattern. So these are the American true patterns, and these are the tier 8s. So the Undertaker and the actual M48A2 pattern. They've all got the same buffs. So to the armor model, they haven't got the reload buffs or the aim time buffs, or so essentially just the same buffs to the armor and the accuracy. So nice to see that. And then we have the Huntsman Centurion, and of course the further Centurion variants, including the Tech Tree Centurion Mark 1 and the Atomic as well. And these have actually been buffed, so I'm surprised that they buffed these two tanks, the Atomic and the Huntsman, as I thought that they were kind of consistent within the game. I didn't think that they were particularly underpowered or terrible. But they've given it a slight bump in DPM is what they've said. It's about 4%, something like that. Nothing major, which is nice. I don't think they needed to give it a huge change. It's about 5% even. And shot dispersion has got better, so that's during rotation and movement, so you're more accurate when you're turning. and moving. And then of course you've got the dispersion during rotation of the 20 pounder has also gone down as well, so good to see. Same with the atomic, so basically the same sort of changes, except with the reload going down on the atomic even more to 6.5 seconds instead of the 7 seconds. So these tanks are going to be rapid at firing, and the DPM is definitely going to be up there with some of the best. And then the Centurion 1, much the same with regards to its accuracy during movement and rotation, both getting better. And then we have the turret getting a buff on the stock turret from 127 to 152. Now this was definitely needed. The stock turret on the Centurion 1 was one of the worst things about it. You get penned by everyone even more so than normal. And yeah, that made it just horrible. And they've also increased the accuracy of some of the stock guns as well. So this is good, very, very much needed. And then of course, when you go through, you will then get extra aim time or increases to your accuracy as well. And your reload also goes down, and the dispersion also goes down. So you're more accurate and you're able to aim in quicker with this vehicle. So very nice to see the tech tree version getting the much love that it needed. And then moving on, we've got the British Chieftain T95 Medium and the Centennial. So these are both getting buffs, and essentially it's the actual physical gun that's getting buffed. So they've got the accuracy going down by about 10%. So that means it's more accurate by 10%. It's a weird way that they've got it, but yeah, the lower the value, the better. Aim time has also gone down by a decent chunk, actually, nearly 20%. So this is really nice to see. And the reload's also gone down by about 10%. So 10% more DPM. And then penetration has also gone up. Yay! This tank was awful with its 200 penetration as standard, so it's nice to see that going up by about 20, and the premium also getting up to a sizable 268mm from 238. So yeah, really nice to see that buffs, and it's definitely going to make these tanks a little bit more usable in today's meta since they are quite old premiums, so good to see. Then we have the Premium Victoria and the STRV-81, which are essentially similar to that of the Centurion, so they're kind of like the Swedish version. And they're getting all of the buffs that they the kind of British tanks got in terms of the accuracy, the reload, the dispersion, and the aim time. So yeah, nice to see those. And then the T44 Medium, so this is a Soviet Tier 8 tech tree. This is getting a buff to its penetration. Yay, finally. And that means that you're going to be able to pen a little bit more and not have to fire exclusive premium. So they've only buffed on the 100mm LB1 gun, the standard penetration, no buffs to the premium. And then on the D10T, they've buffed the standard rounds by about 15 and the premium by, yet again, about 15. So nice to see. Then we have the Motherland, which is a tank that was very good back in the day, not so good anymore. And what they've done with this one is given it more penetration because the tank's penetration sucked, and that's nice to see. But they've only given it an extra 13mm, so it's nothing spectacular, but it's decent. And the aim time has gone down drastically since it was 2.4 seconds, which was awful for the amount of alpha that it had. Horsepower has gone up as well, so it's a bit faster at keeping and maintaining that speed, so good to have. IS has actually received buffs, which I was surprised about, considering that it didn't really need it, and essentially that is that they've increased the penetration of the vehicle, but they've reduced the reload speed, so that's nice to have. So essentially you're going to have increased penetration, but you're not going to be able to have as good DPM, so the reload has gone up by 0.7 of a second, so it's got 10% worse, which is probably a good thing because the IS's small gun was actually the one that people were using a lot as opposed to that higher alpha damage gun. And that puts it, yeah, definitely a little bit of a worse position. And of course, I mean, the tank is very good as it is, even with the 120mm that you can get, or the 122. But moving on, we then have the KV3, which I have no idea why Wargaming have done this, but apparently they've nerfed the reload of the KV3 with this 100mm D10T gun, which is something I wouldn't have even got close to trying to nerf. I don't see why they do it on the KV3. The KV3 is not particularly a great gun, a great tank, and so yeah, nerfing the gun's reload to make it worse at DPM, it's not the good thing to do. The KV3 definitely didn't need this. The IS more so, because it was very good in all regards, and it was faster and a bit more mobile, a bit more flexible. The KV3 didn't really need this. I would have just left it as it is, maybe increase the penetration, but Wargaming are going to do what they're going to do, and that's what they've done. But anyway, moving on, we then have the T54, so the Tier 9 medium, and essentially what all they've done with this is they've increased the penetration on the LB1 gun by minimal, I mean 11 millimeters on the standard rounds. 416 then, this is a tank that I didn't really like. I found it a little bit tedious to play, and of course they've nerfed some of the guns in some regards, but they have buffed it in others. So the penetration we have increases, as with all of the previous Soviet tanks. It's the same gun that they're using. They've basically increased the penetration but decreased the reload as well compared to the other tanks. So it's gone from 8.7 seconds down to 8 seconds, which when you consider the Tier 7 heavy actually had less of a reload than the Tier 8 medium tank. Yay! Well done Wargaming for creating such balanced tanks, literally an extra second longer than the KV3 in the Tier 8 medium tank when you had the stock gun, because yeah, I mean that works. Anyway, they've made the accuracy considerably better, but still awful. I mean, 0.37 accuracy is not fun, and yeah, at least it's getting buffed. Aim time gone up by 10%, nice to see. Same, and then you move on to like the next gun up, and they've also nerfed the reload speed, so it's got up by about 10%. So yeah. Don't know why they're nerfing the DPM of this tank, but apparently they are. They're increasing the penetration of the standard rounds, decreasing the aim time, so it's easier to aim in quickly, and then accuracy's gone up by about 5%, which is good. And then the second turret, you get the same sort of thing, treatment, essentially just slightly better differences between that and the first turret. So yeah, nothing too spectacular. I was hoping that they may give a bonus to the turret armor of the 416, but apparently not. And then we have the Volk T44 and basically the same sort of thing as the Motherland, except it has side skirts that are spaced. And that has received increased penetration and better horsepower to keep it up to top speed and maintain that speed. And then the final one is the 430 version 2, which is its 100mm M63 gun getting better penetration. So that's the top gun of this thing getting, or actually I think it's the middle gun of this thing getting buffed, which is nice, or the stock gun, which is good, so you don't have to fire as much premium with the standard rounds. And I think their AP is standard, but it does get 330 heat pen, which is nice anyway, so you can always spam premium if you want to make the stock grind a little bit less tedious. But yeah, 430 version 2, very good. Of course, let me know what you think of all of the buffs. Do you think Wargaming missed out some of the tanks? We're looking at you, Tiger P. But yeah, hopefully looking a little bit better, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Wargaming are going to do with the next tanks Reforged at a later date. Now, there's no confirmation, but maybe there'll be some. And of course, you can always recommend things to Wargaming themselves using the official World of Tanks console Discord. And of course, you can do it in the, I think it's like the Q&A or like questions, or you can give feedback and stuff like that. So you can use one of those channels, and hopefully Wargaming will take that into account. Or you can message on the live stream and give them some ideas as well on Fridays and Tuesdays. So there should be one today as you're watching this video, but other than that, let's jump into the other challenges that we also have. So there is the Battle of Dunkirk challenge and specials. So essentially what it is that you can get extra XP. So how do you get extra XP? Well, essentially you just have to deal damage, and the more damage you deal, you'll get through all of the Battle of Dunkirk operations, and you'll essentially end up with bonus vehicle XP on every single one that you complete. There's different stages. There are 5 stages total. The maximum XP additional that you can get is 2,500 XP, which can be used once per day, and that's available to British, French and German vehicles only. And yeah, I mean, it's beneficial, especially if you're grinding through. It's an extra about 10,000 XP, no less, like 5,500 XP, which is a bit disappointing. Would have been nice to have like just a flat 1.25 times XP bonus, but we can do what we can do, but at least it's nice to have. And then of course there is the vehicle bundles for the Vindicator Charioteer and the Defiance Matilda, so you can pick those up for 30% discount on all of them, or you can buy both of them in one for a 50% discount, which is probably the way to go if you want to buy the Vindicator, since it is cheaper to buy the Vindicator with the Defiance than it is to buy the Vindicator on its own. Anyway, I don't know why they've done that, but theme sales, 30% discount on all British, French and German vehicles that you can use. So that's all tech tree vehicles, along with all of the premium vehicles that aren't kind of limited to like a special event sort of thing. That's usually how it works. And then 50% discount on all skins as well, and 25% discount on all equipment. And hopefully that's given you an idea as to what is happening this week. And of course you can continue with the Warhammer 40,000 operation, and the Italian tank destroyers at Wargaming have given us some information. So of course they initially wanted to release it today. So literally on today, we were supposed to have the Italian tank destroyers, but they said that unfortunately they're not going to be able to do that because they encountered problems with how the aiming mechanics worked with the kind of curved rotation that these tanks have, and so they're going to be releasing them, or at least having a new release deadline of June 27th. So we've got about a month to wait until the Italian tank destroyers, which is very disappointing, as I was really looking forward to getting my hands on these things. But yeah, unfortunately we'll have to wait about a month. So just a heads up for you guys. And of course we've covered everything else as part of this. So yeah, there's quite a bit on. And of course this weekend there is the Memorial Day weekend, and of course it's celebrated on May 29th. And so yeah, which is essentially USA honours the military personnel who have fallen in service, and usually there is some form of charity event that you can use with that, so just keep an eye out for that. But other than that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I hope you enjoyed this little section of news that we had, and of course the updates and keeping you up to date with the new tanks that have been buffed. So you might want to jump back in some of those and give them a try out. But yeah, hopefully you did enjoy it, and I hope you join me back in the next one. Goodbye.